welcome or welcome back to my channel. I hope you are cozy and comfortable because today we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about mental health and wellness. I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my story. I've actually gone back and forth on whether or not I want to make this video. I've actually made a couple of videos regarding this topic and I've just sat on it. It's not an easy thing for me to talk about, and I wanted to make sure I got across what I wanted to say in the way that I wanted to say it. It's not an easy topic for me to talk about so openly and publicly anymore. If you've known me for a long time, you know that I used to be very open, very vocal about my mental health and my mental health experiences, and that was really important to me at the time. And I think it just has a lot to do with just being in a better place generally, and I just honestly, I got shit to do. I got other things to think about. It's not in the forefront of my mind anymore, which is great. I'm also on track to becoming a therapist, so I am a little bit more conscious about what I speak on and what I decide to share. But I've been thinking a lot about it and thinking about what type of therapist it is that I want to be. And I would like to be a transparent therapist. Obviously, I'm not just going to disclose anything and everything, but I think in a therapeutic relationship, it is very important to, first of all, keep it professional, have those professional boundaries, but also keep it human. There is a natural need for human connection, even in professional therapeutic settings. I do have biases and I do have values that I lean on, but I do reflect heavily on my biases, where they come from and how they might affect my work as a therapist. So I think a lot about how I can be there as a supportive professional with a non-judgmental approach. Like, how can I create a person-centered environment and have that unconditional positive regard for the person that I am working with or the group of people that I'm working with. So after a lot of thinking and going back and forth, I decided I will move forward with sharing a little bit of my story. And I know when I did share my experience before, a lot of people, like, it was important to quite a few people, and I know because I used to get messages thanking me for talking about topics that were not generally talked about or was taboo to talk about. I think we are doing a great job with having these types of conversations now, but when I was growing up, like, nobody talked about it. And it's really important, at the least, not to feel like you're going through something really difficult and you're going through it alone, because one of the biggest thing that I experienced growing up was feeling so isolated in my experience. So I do have notes because I think this is a important topic. That's why I'm just like looking at my laptop. Also, look at my hair. You might hear it jingling. So pretty. I didn't do it. Someone did it for me. I don't know. I wish I could do hair this nice. Okay, anyways. More specifically, today I'll be talking about my experience with anxiety and depression, as well as how I started my healing journey and where I am now today. I want to say a few things beforehand, though. This is my experience. and there are similarities and overlaps in experience, but everyone has their own unique story. And I will be talking about my experience on an antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication. It's an SSRI medication, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Uh, and I was on escitalopram. I think that's how you pronounce it. The brand name was Cipralex, if that means anything to you. And I also want to emphasize that medications do not work the same for everybody. There are different types of medications, and there are different types of treatment, and some people have to try out different things to see what works for them. Luckily, I started out with Cipralex, and it worked for me. I also want to say that there is no shame in needing medication to help regulate your mood. You don't have to have had like this extraordinary childhood trauma to justify needing medication. It's complex. And I don't blame people for feeling the need to rely on medical support. It is a harsh world out there, and there's this growing sense of isolation and lack of community, lack of government care, government support, and a lot of people are on survival mode because they have no choice. You gotta eat, you gotta work, the world is on fire, we're witnessing multiple genocides simultaneously, our ecosystem is going down the drain, and I just want to acknowledge that it sucks and that it's hard. So as for my story, I was born in Nepal, and I immigrated to Canada when I was about 7 years old, and it was a very difficult transition for me. Immigration is not straightforward, so my parents immigrated beforehand. My father immigrated to North America before I was born. My mother joined when I was 2, and my brother lived in boarding school. So I was raised by my grandparents. And yeah, the transition was very difficult. I was very confused about family. I was suddenly uprooted from my home, from everything I've ever known, and now I lived with these 3 people that are my family, but I don't ever remember living with them before. The family dynamic was very disjointed, and I mean, everyone was struggling in their own way, going through their own thing. So, like, I came here around, I think it was November, experienced snow for the first time. It was bone-chilling cold. I had never experienced cold like that before. I didn't understand the language, I didn't understand the culture, or have a connection with my family. I was this outspoken person who suddenly wasn't anymore. We did move around a lot, which added to my sense of instability, and each time I just wasn't comfortable or confident in making new friends, which I felt like I would have to leave them behind anyways. And every time we moved, I was kind of this different person, and I didn't really have a strong sense of who I was. But school was always important to me, and that was the scary part. Losing interest in things that were really important to me. I worked a lot to a point of burnout, to a point where I just simply did not care anymore. I worked really long hours while going through school, and it was like jobs that were difficult on my body. I didn't have a good work ethic. I just did not care. I just could not care. I don't know. And so by the time I was 19, I was spiraling. I just couldn't get through class. And I remember thinking, like, this is not me. Like, I was someone who enjoyed school so much, who was good at school, who loved learning. And then all of a sudden, I keep saying all of a sudden, but I think it came slowly, but the realization was, oh, things have changed. Like, I felt like the realization was sudden. And that's the thing, like, it creeps up on you. Yeah, so first year university is when I started my medication, which really helped noticeably with my physical symptoms. I was very, very attuned to changes in my body, my heart rate. I guess it was like blood pressure dropping, but just feeling like weak and feeling like pins and needles and just scared all the time. So the medication helped with those physical symptoms that kind of like cleared up my foggy brain, and I was able to eat, I was able to sleep, I was able to slow down, and actually sleep was a really big thing for me. Insomnia was a huge thing that had previously taken over my life. Sleep is so friggin' important for everybody, of course, but especially for someone who is still growing and developing. If you lose one night of sleep, like, you can feel it very intensely in your body. And now imagine that over a period of weeks or a period of months. It was brutal. Of course I was tired. Of course I was moody. Of course I was like scared all the time. Of course I was weak. I wasn't sleeping. There was no rest and there was no repair. So I had asked if anyone had any specific questions for me to answer in this video, and one question that I had received was, how did I manage the side effects of being on the medication? I slept so much. I was always sleepy. There were nights where I'd sleep 10, 11 hours and then still sleep during the day. And honestly, I just went with it. It was a very common question for me. Why are you always sleeping? And some were not framed so nicely. Why are you so lazy? Because I was drained. I was so freaking drained. Like, the last time I visited my nieces and nephews, one of the kids asked me, Auntie, how come, like, when you used to come over, you used to always be sleeping? And that made me pause, and it made me feel something. Like, it really touched me because I was missing out on relationship. I was missing out on connection. And other very important people in my life took notice. And it affected how they viewed me. The answer I kind of gave was along the lines of, I'm sorry, Auntie was going through a hard time and I was really tired all the time. But I do have energy now and I'm really happy that I get to spend this time with you. I think it's really important to be open and honest when you're talking to kids. They're really smart. They can sense your energy. Of course, you have to have those conversations in a way that wouldn't harm them. You can definitely overexpose children to things they might not be ready to hear or things that might be a burden to them. So think before you speak, especially to children. I mean, I wish there were a lot of things that I didn't have to know when I was growing up. Another side effect was I gained a lot of weight. Oh, also, back to the sleep. I don't know if I already said this. Because I had spent so much of my life not being able to sleep, if I was tired, I slept. It was as simple as that. Another side effect was that I gained a lot of weight. And for me personally, that was not a bad thing. I was very skinny. I felt weak all the time, and I don't know if weight had anything to do with it, but I liked the weight that I gained. So much so, in fact, when I got off my medication, I lost that 20 pounds. I instantly lost over a very short period of time, and it took me months to come to terms with the fact that this is my normal body weight. I felt ugly, I felt insecure, I felt it. I didn't think it would bother me as much as it did. It bothered me so much. But yeah. But the weight gain is a very common side effect to many medication, not just antidepressants. And that could be really hard on people. Gaining 20, 30 pounds in a short period of time, that is impactful to people. I mean, it impacted me as well, just positively, but then when I got off it, negatively. Yeah. Another side effect was muted emotions. Yes, it subsided a lot of the negative emotions, but also my positive emotions. To me, I was in the mental health sphere. I was going to school for psychology. I was very involved in mental health advocacy, so I was aware. But for someone who may not have that mental health background, all these side effects is very jarring. I mean, even I had a hard time. One side effect that I wasn't aware of was your body heat could rise more than normal, or easier. Like, I don't know how to frame that, but I was someone who loved being in the heat. The hotter, the better. And then I started getting sunstrokes, and I just couldn't handle the heat anymore. So be careful in the heat if you are on an antidepressant medication. Your body temperature may rise more than normal. I also had no libido, and that is very important to a lot of people, and it is hard to talk about, especially in my culture. So I will move on, but that was something that I had to deal with as well. So given all these side effects, it was still better for me to be on the medication when I was weighing out the pros and cons. Like, without it, I just didn't know if I could keep going. It helped me think clearer, sleep better, eat better, find joy. It allowed me to start putting in the work and pull myself out of the really dark time. And that's really important. Do not stop at just taking medication. Like, you have to do more to help yourself. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. On days I would miss my medication, or if I traveled and forgot to take my medication, I was so dizzy and so moody. I had a headache and nausea, and it was intense. And who did I take it out on? The people who were closest to me. So you can see how complex this is. It affected more than just myself. Next, I'll read 2 questions I received and kind of answer them together. Someone asked me, what was the major thing you practiced that helped you get off your meds? Like anything to replace it. And the other question was, what made me comfortable enough to quit, and what strength did I achieve to make that decision? Thank you so much for asking these questions, by the way. I really appreciate it. I was never ashamed of taking medication. Like, that was never a factor for me. I was always open about it, and a bunch of people did ask me, like, what do you have to be depressed about? Or, like, you don't look depressed. Yeah, because I was still doing what I needed to do. I still had a personality. I was still funny. I was still, like, I had a sense of humor, and I was still able to feel joy. Like, I felt joy, and I was hurting deeply. But the longer that I was on medication, I started feeling uncomfortable with the fact that my mood was so dependent on this little pill. And as I grew older and I had more agency and control over my movements, the people I surrounded myself with, I just didn't see myself needing the medication lifelong. And it's okay if you do, but I didn't see that for myself. I thought about getting off of it for about 2 years before I actually did it. And the medication didn't cure me. I was still struggling. I still had nightmares. I was still waking up with so much anxiety sometimes. And my brain, okay, it was kind of like it got better and then it plateaued, and that wasn't enough for me. That was not enough for me. I wanted more. I wanted to feel more in life. And no matter how like depressed I was growing up, I laughed so much. I had so much fun with like my cousin that I grew up with. I did have good times. But like the medication muted all that. And it's hard for me to say like I was always this, I was always that. Like it depended on the day, it depended on the mood, you know? So I decided to start EMDR therapy. It stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And basically, you move your eye, you work with a trained therapist, and they kind of guide you through the process. It's good for trauma processing or reprocessing. And I'm not going to go into detail about my childhood trauma, but I was noticing that I was still angry about things that had happened to me when I was a little kid. Or like I had been out of and away from that traumatic situation for a while now, at that point, but it was still affecting me. And you know, it's not like you grow up and forget about it. It's not like you grow up and move on. What happens to you in your childhood shapes who you are. So anyways, with EMDR, you move your eyes side to side and you think about the traumatic situation, whatever, or you just whatever comes up. You don't try to stop it. For like 1, 2, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, however long your therapist feels like might be right for you, and then you stop, and then you kind of talk about it with your therapist, and you kind of reprocess what happened and your view on it. Usually when you're facing a situation that's really difficult, we're not in the right headspace, especially if we don't have the support system to think about it clearly. And now that we have some distance from that situation, we're able to think about it more clearly. We can maybe address things that maybe we would have liked to have we would have liked to have reacted to, or whatever. Anyways, through the EMDR, your reaction to whatever situation, memories, kind of lessens over the time. So now I can think about things that happened to me and think of it as something that happened in the distant past. Whereas before, I would think about something and I'd start getting hot. My breathing would get shallow, and it was hard. Side note, anything bilateral is really good for calming down your nervous system. Tapping, eye movements, bilateral drawing, we do that in art therapy. Any bilateral movement. Jumping jacks are really good for you, for your calming down your nervous system. So I would like to say, though, if you do not have a good support system outside of therapy, it might be really difficult for you to push through, especially if you're like a highly traumatized person, because once the therapy session ends, you're still gonna experience those memories, those flashbacks, like in the process, like it's gonna spill into your everyday life. So yeah, it got a lot worse before it got better, but I knew that going in, and I pushed through, and it is one of the best things that I have ever done for myself. Around the same time I started EMDR, I started journaling, doing breathing exercises, and meditating. And many people find meditating really difficult. That's why it's called a practice. It doesn't happen overnight. Actually, you can spend your whole entire life trying to get into deep meditative states. And meditation does not equate to calmness. You could be confronted by very difficult things in the process of meditation. Meditation is not the same as mindfulness, and that's a whole different conversation. I'm not going to get into it. But all these things combined, I felt like I was ready to get off my medication. And I had applied to art therapy program, and when I got accepted, I kind of started to get my motivation back, my drive back to do something with my life and to live with purpose. Do not do what I did next. Do not do what I did next. Do not do what I did next. So my bag is like always so disorganized. I'm always pulling random things out of my pocket. I was parking my car and I hear this loud crack, and I got out to check, and my medication bottle, I had run over my medication bottle with my car, and it must have fallen out of my bag or something. And I was like, this is a sign. If this isn't a sign, I don't know what is, because I was thinking about it for a while at that point. I want to get off my medication. So do not do what I did next. Do not stop your medication cold turkey. Do not stop your medication without consulting your doctor. You have to slowly wean off your medication. You have to monitor how you're doing when you're getting off your medication. I had side effects. I was really dizzy. I felt off for a week or so, and then I started slowly feeling good. But I do remember feeling anxious about how good it was. And I was on this high for a little while, and very anxious because I was worried that something this good can't last forever. What's going to happen? When is it going to happen? Something's going to happen tonight. Something must happen tomorrow. This can't last forever. I just kept obsessing over that. And it doesn't last forever. And that's life. Life happens. stress happens, it doesn't last forever. And now that I had proof that I shouldn't be afraid of my emotions. I shouldn't be afraid of intensity. Life is going to have highs and it's going to have lows. The highs don't last forever. The lows don't last forever. And I remember being confused about this calmness. I was like, am I bored? Should I do something self-destructive? What is going on? If I'm not sad, am I happy? Do I have to necessarily be happy? If I'm not happy, then am I sad? And with a lot of like self-reflection and therapy, and also just being in my art therapy program, we do a lot of self-reflection and work on ourselves. That was also probably a factor in my healing. I learned that the opposite of happy is not necessarily sad, and the opposite of sad is not necessarily happy. I can feel a whole range of emotions, and that is normal. Sometimes I go through intense periods of stress, but I know it's not going to last forever. And it just makes it so much easier to keep going. So I don't think I'm scared anymore about like, oh, things have been going really well for a couple of days now, something's gonna happen. Maybe. Yeah, something will happen eventually. But how am I gonna react to it? How am I gonna move forward? Who are my support systems that I can call on? Yeah, so some other things that really helped me a lot was the support system that I've built. My friends and family, those friends and family who love me unconditionally. I've built a great community, like my art community. I've talked about community in other videos, so I'm not going to go into that. My cat, honestly, like I got her 3 years ago. She is such a strong presence in my life, a really good companion. Like I make sure I spend quality time with her. I take her out every morning. I wake up, she's ready to go outside, and it's something that we both look forward to. I know it's one of her favorite part of the day, and it's kind of like become my favorite part of the day as well. It's a really good way to start off my day. And sometimes when she comes and sits on me, I put away my phone. I make that conscious decision of putting away my phone and I talk to her. I pet her, like I spend quality time with her. And it's such a special bond, and I hope she knows how much I love her because I love her so much. But before I get too off topic, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you so much for those who asked questions, and I hope this was a little bit helpful at least, and see you in the next one. Oh, also, making art, like, art saved me. Art, when I started doing art for me, I'll make a different video about that. I probably have talked about it multiple times. Anyways, bye. See you in the next video.